share with you some techniques and resources that are going to increase your productivity when building interface in Power Apps. And first, I would like to give a little introduction about myself. And I'm currently working with Power Platform governance, and I'm also uh, still being a Power Apps developer, and I have a blog and YouTube channel. Unfortunately, it's not available in English yet. It's only in Portuguese, but maybe in the future we're going to have English content. So let's start. Here's our agenda. Is broken in three parts. And first, I would like to give quick tips of how you can improve your UI. Those are very simple tips. And the second step, I would like to show you where you can find the resources and tools that can improve your productivity, your decision making when developing Power Apps UI. And at the end, I would like to do a kind of hands-on where we're going to see how all of these tips works in Power Apps. So let's start with our tips. My first tip is to use different shades of the same color. You know, when we start as developers of interface, the first thing we believe is that we only need two colors that contrast well to create our texts or all other elements of the interface. Usually we get black and white, and what happens that this creates a monochromatic effect, which makes hard for the user to understand what is the important information in the screen. So here's an example. And we can see that in this interface, we have a wide range of shades of black and gray that gives a hint to the user what is the important information, what is the primary information, and what is the secondary information, right? So this creates a hierarchy for the user to know where you should look first. And of course, there are also other elements that change this hierarchy. Okay, so the size and typography and the position in the screen, we tend to scan the screen from the top to the top down, and so the most important elements may be in the top and the less important below. So let's go for our next tip. Is use the same icon pattern. This may sound obvious, but believe me, I see this happens all the time. And what happens is when we are creating in Power Apps, sometimes we won't find icons that fit our needs, that can express our ideas. And what we do, we just search on the internet to some kind of icon or image to replace no to get the idea that we want. This is great, it's okay, but we have to be careful, and I'll show you why. So here's an example of kinds of icons that we can have: flat, linear, and filled. And what happens if we get a mix of this type of icons is that we can confuse our user. So for instance, let's suppose that we have a flat standard, and maybe we introduce another kind of icon, a linear or a field. And what happens that we are going to confuse our user, because it's going to appear that maybe the the outlier icon is selected or is a special function, and this may confuse the user. Okay, so our next tip. Nothing's lost, nothing's created, everything is transformed, right? We don't need to create everything from scratch. Okay, every time I'm going to create a new app, I try to search if there's any successful model that's already deployed in the market. And the idea behind this is really simple. Whoever developed it spend time testing and correcting and searching for the best practice, for the best result. And we don't have to go through all of that. Okay, we can just see what works and try to make it works for our project, our case. And this doesn't mean that we have to copy everything we see, but we have to have good reference. Okay, so here's an example of a project that I'm currently working on. And this is a portfolio search, IT portfolio search. And I was inspired by this interface of DuckDuckGo. And what happens that this probably is going to work really well because users are already used to this kind of interface on a daily basis. They are using this kind of interface. And when they are going to use your application, they will feel comfortable because it's really similar to what they already are using. Okay, so our next tip is you don't need to be a designer. Okay, you just have to explore the resources. There are many resources that you can use without even leaving your browser. So you don't need to know a lot of theory about design. You don't need to know how to use advanced design softwares. You just have to know where to go and where to use this kind of resources. And I will show a few of these resources that I use in a daily basis that helps me a lot. The first resource is Color Picker. This is a website and it's really easy to use. And what I use for is when I want to get the color schema identity of a brand, or I want to know what colors were used in a certain interface, I can use this tool to get what I want. And I will show you how I do it. It's really simple. So for instance, I'll get the snipping tool here. If I want to know the color schema of these logos, I just get in here with the snipping tool and I do a Ctrl+C and I go for Color Picker. And I just paste here with Ctrl+V. And instantly I get this result with all the colors, which is really easy to copy. And if you go for a show bar, you can get different shades of that color, and also you can have color combinations that you can easily copy and transfer to your app, your interface. So I really use this all the time to get information about brand identity and logos and whatever colors I need to know. Okay, so let's get back. And the next resource that I use a lot is emoji, getemoji.com. And a few time ago, I started to use emoji in Power Apps. I didn't know that it could be so useful. And I often use this website. I will show you that is get emoji. And whenever I need to translate an idea, this helps me a lot. So for instance, if I need a search emoji that I want to place in a input text, let me get to the app to make an example. So here I have an emoji that is helping me to deliver this search idea. So this is where I get from, and I recently discovered that if you press Windows and dot, you can get also directly from here. So these are two options. You can go to the website or use directly on Windows. Now let's go to the next. The next one is remove BG. I use this tool to remove backgrounds whenever I need to get an image without the background. I use this website, and it's really easy to use, just like the other ones I showed. So let me get another example. If we get the snipping tool, I just get Control C, and I go to remove BG, and I just do a Control V, and quickly it's going to remove the background for me. And my image is already done. I just need to download and use it in my application. Let's go for the one. And this is flat icon is definitely my favorite site for getting icons. And I'll just show here this website. What I like the most about the site is that you have packs of icons, and also you have variations of the icons. So for instance, what I just showed before, I showed you guys this icon, so you can get different styles of the same icon, and also you can have in PNG or SVG, which is great depending on the use case. And another resource that you can use for getting icons, which is really, really useful, is PowerPoint. So I also use a lot. Sorry for the Portuguese words here, guys. But if you go for icons, insert icons, you can see a library full of useful icons, and they are great because you have different styles. Okay, let me get in Portuguese. So I have the field, I have the not field, and also I can change the color. I can do whatever I want to make it match my interface, my color schema, whatever. And after I can save as PNG or SVG, and this is also really, really useful for getting icons. Okay, let's go back. And I believe many of you know this one, loading IO. I also use this a lot. Loading IO allow us to get loading GIFs for using in our interface. And what is really interesting, let me get in here, is that you can build yourself the loading icon and change the colors. So for instance, if you go here and go for edit, you can change the colors to match your brand, to match your project logo or whatever. And this is at the end looks really cool. Looks like it was made by you, but no, it's just the site. Okay. So let's go for other source. This is Dribble, is a site that I use a lot to get reference from professional designers all over the world. So whenever I need to get inspiration for an interface or have ideas or see trainings to see what a modern interface should look like, I go to Dribble, and I'll show you here. So if you search for something like a sales dashboard, for instance, let's say our project is about it, we can get a lot of ideas, a lot of reference. And for instance, if I go here, we can also get the colors from that dashboard. And this is give you a really good idea of what a good interface should look like. And this is what I was talking about, getting reference and not making things from scratch. Okay. The next one is also a really useful tool, is Canva. I'll show you guys here. I was using this already. I was using this to make this presentation, actually. And what I use the most here in Canva is the GIFs. So whenever I need to get some kind of animation or I want to express something in a more fun way, I get the elements here from Canva. So I was searching for an arrow here. But if you go, let's see, I don't know, question mark, for instance. Okay, we have a lot of resources and animated and non-animated stuff that we can get. And I will show you how to, at the end, when in the hands-on, how you can get something like this and make a GIF to include in your app. And let's get this to the end. Before, let's move on with the other tools. And these are the two final tips and tools that are CSS scan and CSS gradient. I use these two tools to get information about CSS when I am building an HTML object, and I'll show you here. So it's like a library where you can get all the models, and once you click here, you're going just to copy the code, and this is makes really simple to get the code you want without having to think too much. So I use this all the time to get these effects of shade, to build cards and other stuff. And I also use this CSS gradient to build gradients. And I'm just going to show this in the Power Apps interface that I think works a lot better. So here's our interface, and now we get to the third part of our session. And let's see how to apply everything we just said. So you can see that I'm using emojis here and also using emoji here in this day mode, dark mode. And this input text is really in the background we have an HTML, and that was which I was talking about, this CSS gradient and this another library of HTML and CSS. And here I'm also using HTML for these buttons, and for these cards I'm also using HTML. This button right here is actually an emoji. And talking about also SVG, this heart here is an SVG. So the advantage of using SVG is that we can manipulate the image. So I can change the color of the image based on an action. So if I click here, it should go for, okay, red. And this is what I like about SVG. You can stretch the image, you're not going to lose quality. And let me show you guys the GIF I was talking about. Oh, this one. This is what I was doing in Canvas. So if you want to do animation for a manual, you can transform what you done in Canva right here in a GIF, and you can place right here the image. So this is a really useful case of GIFs. And I just remember one thing about grids. I have been using this a lot lately. So I know that professional guys from UI, UX, they use these grids. And I try to figure out how you can use these grids in Power Apps as well. And I came up to doing a grid myself, and I just use as background whenever I'm developing, and this helps me to get the objects in the right place. Okay, so it's really simple. It's just a background with the grid you'd like to use. So you just change the grid, and when you're done, you just change the back for none, and then you're good to go. Okay, so the last thing I would like to show you guys is an example of how we use this guy and this grading thing here. I prepared these HTML objects. So if you've never seen this before, you just go for text and create an HTML object. And here I have a code. And we have the properties of width, height, margin, background. So you don't need even to know deep stuff about HTML or CSS. You can just copy and paste this code, and also you can play with these things. Okay, so for instance, we have the code here. I'm just going to copy to the clipboard, and I'm going back here. Of course, you need to know maybe where you should paste. So I try to paste it here. And I got my gradient, okay? So I don't need how to code a gradient, okay? I just need to know how to use the resource to get this from me. And the same thing for the shades, okay? You don't need to know how to code a shade, okay? You just go for the library and get it done. Okay, so I think that's all. If we have any comments or questions, I'd be glad to try to answer. Let me go for the chat. Okay, yes, sure, I can share the HTML code. This is the HTML code for the gradient one. This here is also gradient, but I try to make it look like a glass. I'm sharing this code also in the chat. Okay. Sorry if I missed any questions. I was not looking at the chat. Okay. Okay, guys. So if there's no further questions, that's all. Raz, are you there?
Hello, thank you, Leonardo. Yes. So let's go through the questions. Since we have half an hour, that means we've got half an hour of Q&A. So, so Adesh, I can see you have a question here. Adesh, your question is in relation to the animation. If we use all the animation, will it affect loading time of an app in the Power Apps? And how can we keep our apps lightweight?
Yeah, from my experience, this won't have much impact on the loading time, but of course you have to be careful not to load a lot of stuff into your app. Then you probably may get loading issues, but usually it doesn't happen.
So Jose is asking, can you separate the style in a CSS file?
Can we separate the style in a CSS file? Not sure if I get this one.
Sandeep is asking, what is the last website name for Gradient?
Okay, I'll paste the resource here. This is CSS Gradient. I'm pasting here, and the one I use for shades is also here.
So it seems there's quite a lot of questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the floor for questions and answers. So if everyone who's got a question, could you please raise your hand and I will unmute you. So Pawan, if you could just raise your hand, and anybody else on this call, anyone who's new to UX for Power Apps or has any questions, for beginner level for Power Apps, which Leonardo has kindly done with his great tips on getting started with the UX or Power Apps. Please raise your hands and I can unmute you. So Pawan is asking, any reference we can get for good Power Apps design samples templates, Leonardo?
Yes, usually what I do, I try to look to applications that are not necessarily Power Apps, but they are other platforms, and just try to get a reference from that. You don't need to create a Power Apps that look like a Power Apps standard model. So I usually go to Dribble and try to check how the most popular tools in the market are designed. That's my reference.
Okay, so in short, to answer your question, what Leonardo recommends is that he looks at the benchmark for the leading websites and uses Dribble as a source for setting the standards of user interface design. And I think that's a really good piece of advice, because what I've noticed, correct me if I'm wrong, but different countries have a different appreciation for user interface, right? You can notice that. So you'll notice that different people from different countries tend to use different types of shades of colors. But what we do find is that the leading web applications have done a far better research and scientific considerations when it comes to the user interface. And this is the big challenge when it comes to Power Apps, especially canvas-driven Power Apps, is that end users have full control over that experience. So now you have that responsibility on your shoulders. So Leonardo, could you share some of these challenges that you faced and certain design principles that you have seen incorporated on web applications that you felt that you needed to implement on your Power Apps?
Yes, we develop global applications. So like you said, we have a difference in cultures and different meanings for different things. And my piece of advice would be to try to test what you're doing and try to see the end user, how he interacts, watch the end user interacting with your interface, and see if he or she get what you really mean by by giving clues, by organizing your layout, and because this you're getting answers from your source, your end user, and this is really important. You know, we tend to think a lot in ourselves, and but we should focus on the user.
Okay, so let's take a look at any other questions. So this is your chance. This is your chance to learn all about designing Power Apps. So Tony's asking, can you explain how you created the day and night mode?
Great, of course. And I can share my screen again to show that. Okay, so the day-night mode, you just need to have a variable. So I have a variable here that is true or false, is Boolean. And whenever this changes, all my elements are going to also change. So for my background, I have the fill property here. So if dark mode, so if it's true or if it's false, I'm going to use different colors. Okay, so if it's true, I'm going to use this black color, and if it's false, I'm going to use this. And what you need to do, you just have to apply that for all your elements. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing for the color in this text, if dark mode, and then you go for whatever color you think that's going to fit best. This is how it works.
There you go. So what Leonardo has shown there is a simple use of the Power Apps functions to create that feature. There you go. Look at that.
Yeah, and just apply this for all objects that need to have this change. That's how it works.
Okay, any more questions? A nice comment by Nono, who's saying, Leonardo the King, salute, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
that's nice. Salute.
Okay, so Pawan was asking for references for creating good Power Apps design sample templates. Could you share some of your insider knowledge, Leonardo, on places where users can begin with using templates for their Power Apps?
Yes, yes. Like I said, I usually go to Dribble. So just search here, guys, for the type of interface that you are looking for to develop. Okay, so I searched here for sales dashboard, but you can search for anything. Okay, so I don't know what kind of application we could do. Agenda. So this is going to give you a clue of how an agenda application that have great look would look like, and how the layout is organized and how the colors are organized. So just get the reference here and try to do something similar. Okay, I can tell you a place that you can go and get the template already done. I don't know about that, but you can get good reference and try to create things similar to this. Okay.
So Jennifer Rideout is saying, I love using GIFs and apps, great for tutorials without having to connect to an external video source. And Hale is saying, very useful tips. Von Dale is saying, Leonardo, how much do you charge for a copy of your canvas?
Yeah, no, I won't charge anything. I think maybe I can make it available for free a few of my use case. There's another question here about SVG.
Ah, yes, Kathy. Yes, asking, can you share how to use SVG for your search data card one more time?
Yeah, sure. I didn't show that, but so the SVG, we just have to copy the code of the SVG image. So let me get something, for example, from the icon. And for instance, if you want to work with a heart icon, that's what I did there. You just came here and you download the SVG file. And this is going to give you a text file. I'm going to open here with, hold on, my notepad. Okay, so you are going to get a code like this, and you need to replace the quotes with simple quotes. This is what you want to do first, and copy this code. In your Power Apps, you have to have this piece of code first, okay, and this formula encoded URL, and then you just paste it here, the code you just downloaded. And there is a property called fill. Okay, you look for that, and you can change the fill of the image. So that's what I'm doing here. I have a if statement that says if this item is liked, I'm going to show the red color, or if it's not liked, I'm going to show just transparent. Okay, so that's how SVG works for this use case.
And Peter, Ahmed is asking, can you please show where to place the HTML or CSS?
Okay. So for the HTML, what you want to do is to get text and HTML text. We're going to get something like this. Right, so I just pasted the piece of code in the chat. So you just need to copy that and paste on your HTML text property. And it's done. It's simple like that. You're going to get something like this. Hope that answered your question.
Yes, you make it look so easy. Everyone's bamboozled. And I believe Peter is saying maybe you can add your Canvas app on the Git repo for PNP samples.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that, sure.
So check out that, guys, the PNP samples. So that will be also useful for you if you need help. Chagar is saying, excellent, Leonardo. Thanks for the big share of info.
Great, thank you guys for attending this session. It's a pleasure to be sharing here.
Yes, and Ahmed, from your advice, now he's just bought the Scan CSS. Is there a price? Is it a paid product?
The Scan CSS? I don't think so. Let me get here. At least I never used like a premium feature or something. Maybe if you're using another feature, okay. But for this CSS box shadow is free. It's totally free. Okay.
There is a get CSS scan on the right hand side. So there must be a paid feature for something. Yeah.
Yes, I see that we have paid features, but actually I never use those. I just use.
Well, there you go, Ahmed. You did not need to buy it. Okay. So Michelle is asking, do you have any tips on how to balance the amount of information provided to the user on a dashboard or gallery, for example, to prevent clutter of information overload?
Yes, from my experience, what I heard from UX and UI guys is that it's really difficult for us to process more than 7 pieces of information on the screen. So you want to keep that in mind and try to highlight the best information, the most important information, and the secondary information, try not to give that much emphasis, so you can use secondary colors, and this will give a more kind of clean look in the screen.
So there you have it. The principles for clean layout is to restrict the number of objects you're exposing to 7 on a given page, right?
Yes, most on information, okay, you can have more objects than that, but if you're giving meaningful information, I would advise not to go for more than 7 at once.
Well, there you go, Mitchell. I hope that answers your question. Do we have any other questions? We've still got 10 more minutes for questions. Any other questions? Let's take a look. Here you go. Atali is asking, can you put JavaScript and has it run in Power Apps by putting a script in the HTML text?
I don't think so.
Yep, and thank you to April, who's answered that question as well. Yes, so yep, you cannot inject JavaScript into an HTML component. Thank you so much, April. And we look forward to April's session, which is the session in 1 hour's time. So really excited for April's session in 1 hour's time. Okay, any more questions? So in the last 10 minutes, Leonardo, would you like to summarize for the audience the UX best practices and maybe controls for Power Apps?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen again. I'll give a quick tour again in our interface, in our example here. So recapping everything, use emojis in your interface. They are going to help you a lot to give the idea, to translate the idea when you pass. And so for instance, I'm using emojis here on the search bar. I'm using emojis here on the day mode, night mode. And this button, I use it, I emoji also to make it more fun. The next screen, I also using emojis here. This button here, I use it emoji also, okay. And the HTML is fantastic. I'm using in many places, as you can see here, in the cards, in the search bar. You know, you once you use HTML, you're going to go out of the standard pattern from Power Apps and give a more solid design interface. And another tip that we spoke about today is the SVG. Okay, so the SVG are a great way to manipulate images, to make changes in the color of the image. You can use also SVG charts. I didn't have anyone to show up here, but in this case, we're just using this heart. So you can manipulate the color of the image like I did here. And the grid thing that also is helping me a lot, the app grid here, is going to make a lot easier to find where you need to place your objects. So this is just an image that you are setting as a background. And once you do that, you can find yourself, your objects on the screen more easily. And once you're done, you just go back for known as the background. So let's go back here. And your objects are going to be really well aligned. And other tip that we talked about today, it was about the GIFs. And so if you want to make animation like this in your manual, you can just use Canva as I did here. Okay, so have your image here, and then you can just go here and download as a GIF. Okay, so for instance, let me give an example. I just added this text to use Power Apps and get this arrow here for, I don't know, for pointing to nothing. And you can download as a GIF. And once you download as a GIF, you can just load this in your app, okay? And you are going to have this very cool effect without the need of getting a video inside your app. Okay, so slider. And I think the last thing is when you're building these HTML things, you can have these models of gradient and of shadows done for you. You don't need to know how to code it. You just go for the resources I shared with you guys and copy and paste in your HTML, and it's going to work really well. I think that's it. Don't remember of anything else.
So that is it. So once again, thank you, Leonardo, for joining us all the way from South America and sharing these tips that I'm sure are going to save people a lot of time on building their Canvas app. So Thank you once again, Leonardo. Can you please share your contact details for those who want to keep in touch?
Yes, I'll paste here in the chat my LinkedIn, my personal email address, so you can get in touch with me.